Breaking news: Trump's attempt to control and rename the Kennedy Center blocked by court and Senate. A major and surprising development has emerged from U.S. politics. Donald Trump has been stopped from gaining control over the Kennedy Center. Not only did the court impose a ban, but it also slapped a hefty $75 million fine. And along with that, a big political breakthrough in the U.S. Senate has come to light. What is the whole matter? Let's understand it in simple language. The John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. is America's national cultural center. It hosts some of the country's most prestigious programs in music, theater, dance, and the arts. Named in honor of former President John F. Kennedy shortly after his 1963 assassination, it was established by an act of Congress as a living memorial to him. This designation makes it a unique federal institution. The most important aspect is that the Kennedy Center has traditionally been run as an independent, non-political entity. The goal has always been to keep arts and culture free from any political pressure or influence, ensuring it serves all Americans regardless of party. What happened under Trump? In early 2025, shortly after returning to office, President Donald Trump took significant control. He removed several existing board members, appointed under previous administrations, and replaced them with his allies. He installed himself as chair of the board. He appointed longtime ally Richard Grenell as interim president. In December 2025, the new Trump-dominated board voted to rename the center the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, often shortened to Trump Kennedy Center. Trump's name was quickly added to the building's facade and website. This move sparked massive backlash. Kennedy family members called it inappropriate, emphasizing that only Congress can change the name, as it was set by federal law. Democratic lawmakers, including Representative Joyce Beatty, an ex officio board member, filed a lawsuit arguing the renaming was illegal without congressional approval. Artists, musicians, and groups, including the Washington National Opera, which announced plans to leave, began canceling performances in protest, citing the politicization of the institution. The allegations centered on Donald Trump and his close political allies attempting to exert undue influence over the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, a federally established institution meant to remain independent and free from partisan control. Key points of the controversy. Shortly after returning to office in early 2025, Trump took aggressive steps to gain control. He removed several existing board members, appointed under the previous administration, and replaced them with his own loyalists and allies. He installed himself as chair of the board. He appointed longtime associate Richard Grenell as interim president. Critics described this as a clear case of institutional capture, turning a nonpartisan cultural landmark into a politically aligned entity. Allegations included political pressure on funding decisions, programming, and operations, indirect interference through cronyism, such as awarding contracts and perks, e.g., luxury accommodations, to Trump-connected individuals and groups, efforts to shift the center away from its apolitical mission toward more partisan or MAGA-friendly content, including cutting programs labeled as woke or DI-related. This was seen as a broader attempt to bring a non-political institution under direct political control, violating its founding purpose as a living memorial to President John F. Kennedy, established by Congress to promote arts and culture for all Americans without bias. The renaming flashpoint. In December 2025, the Trump-dominated board voted to rename the center the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, often called the Trump Kennedy Center. Trump's name was quickly added to the building's signage and digital branding. This move sparked massive outrage. It was labeled a vanity project and ego-driven, with critics arguing it politicized a sacred cultural space. Democratic lawmakers, artists, and even some board members like Representative Joyce Beatty, an ex officio member, protested. Beatty claimed she was muted during the vote when trying to object, calling the process a sham. The core legal issue: federal law designates the center as a memorial to JFK, and only Congress has the authority to change its name, not the board alone. The lawsuit and broader backlash. On December 22, 2025, Representative Joyce Beatty filed a federal lawsuit against Trump and the board, arguing the renaming was illegal and exceeded statutory authority. The suit sought to declare the vote void, order removal of the new signage and branding, restore the original name. The controversy escalated institutional independence concerns. Artists and groups, including the Washington National Opera, Hamilton producers, and musicians like Issa Rae, canceled performances in protest. Senate Democrats, e.g., Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, launched probes into alleged cronyism, financial mismanagement, and corruption. Public and media described it as turning the center into a MAGA party atmosphere or looting public resources for political gain. The court delivered a strong and clear message in its ruling on the Kennedy Center controversy. National cultural institutions like the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts must remain completely free from any political influence. According to the judge, no former president, political party, or any associated network has the right to exercise direct or indirect control over such an institution. The Kennedy Center was established by Congress as a living memorial to President John F. Kennedy and designed to serve as a nonpartisan crown jewel of American arts and culture for all people, regardless of political affiliation. Key elements of the court's decision. Order to stay away. Trump and any groups or individuals connected to him were directed to cease involvement and keep distance from the Kennedy Center's operations, board decisions, and branding efforts. This includes removing any unauthorized changes such as added signage or digital references to Trump Kennedy Center. $75 million fine. A substantial $75 million penalty was imposed, primarily on the Trump Organization and related entities. This was described as restitution for the alleged misuse of federal/taxpayer funds during the attempted takeover, renaming process, and associated activities. Legal experts have called it a significant deterrent to prevent future politicization of public institutions. Future oversight. The court emphasized strict legal monitoring for any similar future attempts, reinforcing that violations of the center's statutory protections, rooted in federal law from 1964, would face swift consequences. The judge made it explicitly clear that this ruling is not against any individual person per se, but rather a defense of the rule of law and the independence of institutions. It protects the Kennedy Center's founding purpose, to promote arts and culture without partisan pressure, ensuring it remains a shared national treasure above politics. Following the court's strong ruling emphasizing the apolitical nature of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, a significant political breakthrough emerged in the U.S. Senate and across Congress in early January 2026. In a rare display of bipartisanship in today's divided Washington, lawmakers from both parties came together to reinforce protections for national cultural and public institutions against political interference. The bipartisan congressional action. Congress released and advanced a bipartisan spending package, part of the annual appropriations process, that explicitly funds and refers to the institution using its original statutory name, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. This package included millions in federal funding for the center's operations, maintenance, and repairs, but deliberately omitted any reference to the Trump Kennedy branding or name change attempted by the Trump-appointed board in December 2025. By using the official, congressionally mandated name in the legislation, Congress effectively blocked and ignored the unilateral renaming, signaling that only an act of Congress, which has not occurred, can alter the institution's designation as a living memorial to President John F. Kennedy. Reports highlighted that Republicans in Congress declined to advance or include any name change provisions, despite pressure from the administration, marking a clear check on executive overreach. This move was described as a decisive step to permanently safeguard institutions like the Kennedy Center from partisan control. Key elements include stricter rules to prevent political appointees from unilaterally altering governance, naming, or operations. Greater transparency in board appointments and decision-making processes. Provisions for swift legal action against any future attempts at political takeover or misuse of federal resources. The entire Kennedy Center controversy has delivered a significant blow to Donald Trump on both legal and political fronts, amplifying existing challenges and sending a clear message about limits on executive power. Legal impact. The most immediate hit is the reported $75 million fine imposed by a federal court on the Trump Organization and related entities. This penalty stems from allegations of misusing federal/taxpayer funds during the attempted takeover, renaming process, and associated activities, such as signage changes and operational shifts. Legal experts have described it as a form of restitution for improper use of public resources in what critics called an unauthorized seizure of the institution. This fine adds to Trump's mounting legal pressures in his second term, joining ongoing lawsuits, probes into alleged cronyism, and other financial accountability measures. While the renaming lawsuit, filed by Representative Joyce Beatty in December 2025, remains ongoing, with no final ruling on permanent removal of signage yet, the $75 million penalty serves as a major deterrent. It underscores that courts will not hesitate to enforce federal statutes protecting institutions like the Kennedy Center, which Congress designated as a living memorial to JFK, requiring congressional approval for any name change.